Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 104 of the Sports Daily College Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Vowells. Mike Koomar is with me, and Mike, today we are previewing the West region of the NCAA tournament. At the top of the pile is Florida, the SEC tournament champions. Um, we'll go through this region. We'll go through all the pods, who we think has advantages in the round of 64 matchups, and who we think could maybe go on a run to the Elite Eight and Final Four. Mike, this first pod is going to be in Raleigh, North Carolina. We've got Florida and Norfolk State in the 116. And then the more notable matchup here, we've got the back-to-back defending champion UConn Huskies against Porter Moser. He's got some March success too, and the Oklahoma Sooners. So, Mike, this is a little bit of probably one of the more interesting 116, 8, 9 pods. What are you looking forward to seeing here in Raleigh?
Well, first off, I don't think Florida's going to have any issues with Norfolk State. They've been beating a whole lot of Final Four caliber teams in the last couple of weeks, so I don't see any problem with them there. This matchup, though, OU versus UConn is going to be an interesting one. Two-time defending national champions come here. They're not playing their best basketball. This is clearly an off year for them. With that being said, I like the Huskies, and I like them in part because, look, Oklahoma just has not been winning games this year. The Oklahoma has lost 13 of their last 19 games going into this game, and if Caravan can stay out of foul trouble, size is going to be a huge advantage for UConn in this one. So I'm going to like the Huskies to get the win in advance. And you think about it too. Hurley's won 12 straight NCAA tournament games. That is crazy. So yeah, I'm taking UConn to get the win over Porter Moser squad.
I think I'm leaning UConn too. Mike, I think we give Dan Hurley the benefit of the doubt if the talent level is the same or more
Yeah,
for UConn, and I think that argument can be made here. The key to stopping Oklahoma is you really can't let fears create. I think Hurley will have enough from his guards to stop them from doing that. And UConn is kind of what they are. They haven't been great defensively over the course of the entire year, but this is still UConn that we're talking about here. I think they could make pretty quick work of Oklahoma here. I think this could be a double digit, sort of UConn was in control for 90% of this one.
yeah. No, absolutely. I think UConn will get the win, and they'll be able to get into a situation where they lose to Florida the following game.
Yep. All right, let's go down to pod number 2 for 13 5 12. This one's going out to Seattle, Washington. Mike, we've got Maryland going up against Bryce Drew and the WAC tournament champion Grand Canyon Antelopes. Grand Canyon was they did win last year, if I'm not mistaken, in the round of 64 and gave a really
Yeah,
good effort in the round of 32. Think they can do it again?
I think they absolutely can. Look, the one thing that I would say, and it's nothing against GCU, Maryland has been playing really good basketball lately, and that's why I like the Terps in this one. But definitely, I think this is going to be a competitive basketball game. But you look at what Maryland's been able to do lately. They had that heartbreaking loss against Michigan that could have gone either way, just a really bad defensive stop at the end of the game. But they blew out Illinois. They beat Michigan earlier on in March. They've been really hot. They're only they've had a lot of also heartbreaking losses this year. Look at that game against Michigan State. If that game goes into overtime, they probably win that. The way that that game was going. However, Michigan State ever to make a three-quarters court shot to win that one. So Maryland's just a hot team. I like hot teams in March. I think Kevin Willard's going to have his squad ready to play.
Yeah, the Maryland essentially will play their starters for the entire game. They've been given the nickname the Crab Five. They have not once been like they've never once paid for their lack of depth, and I just don't see it happening here. Um, Tyon Grant Foster is pretty good, and Grand Canyon is a really good team. Again, they were a team that I was probably wanting to pick before I saw the
Yeah,
matchups, but I think you just got to go with Maryland here. Like they
I
didn't have a
agree.
ton of games to play in the Big Ten tournament. I think they only played two. Um, they had plenty of time to get to Seattle this Friday, 4:35 p.m. Eastern. I think Grand Canyon actually played a game more recently, or they both played on Saturday. But I'm going to go with the Terps here. All right, the other
Absolutely.
game, or go ahead. Or
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, well, the other game in this pod is Memphis and Colorado State. The 5-12 Memphis heavily overseeded in everybody's opinion, and Colorado State, the Mountain West tournament champions. Mike, if you were to look at this game, you'd think Memphis would be the favorite, but analytics, betting sites, they're saying otherwise. They're giving Colorado State, who is the eighth best team since January 1st, per Bart Torvik, they're putting them as the favorites here. So Memphis, there's your reward for winning the American and getting 3 seed lines too high. You get to be the underdog.
Yeah, right. So Colorado currently a point and a half favorites in this one. It's certainly an interesting situation that they've got going on here. Look, like you said, the reason Colorado is one of the betting favorites in this game, it's because of how well that they've been able to play coming down the stretch and being able to win in the MWC championship game. Look, I think the big key to this game is will Colorado State be able to match up with Dane Danger down low? That's something that I see as a huge issue for the Rams. They just don't have the size maybe to go with him. But with that being said, I'm actually going to pick I don't think it's an upset really, but it's the higher seed. I'm going to pick the Rams. I
Yeah,
just don't think Memphis has played that good a talent coming down the stretch. And they're not winning games convincingly. I talked about this on Sunday. They haven't really had very many impressive games in the last while, other than maybe beating North Texas in the regular season.
they had Tyrese Hunter, who's pretty obviously the third option for Memphis, missed the American Championship game. It's not looking good for him to play. Um, I think Haggerty and Danger are really fun to watch together, and so is Nick Clifford in Colorado State. Um, they still feel disrespected that they got a 12. This also signifies that they were,
They weren't going to win.
definitely out if they lost. I mean, Boise was out, and they lost to them in the championship game. So this is I think Memphis, you know, were sleptwalked through a couple games in that American tournament. They turned it on when it mattered. But as long as Colorado State can rotate the bodies up front, put Danger on the free throw line, he's not a good free throw shooter. I think they might be able to get away with this one. And I'm going to go with Colorado State too, Mike. I think they're just the better team right now. And that's not what seeding is, but that's what picking teams in the bracket is. So I agree with the Rams. All right, well, we're halfway through this region. This is your every video reminder to join the Sports Daily group on ESPN Tournament Challenge. The link will be in the bio to this video and in the link in the bio in Instagram. It's a free contest to play. You may enter one bracket. Trying to get a ton of people in there, and the winner will get a prize. So please be sure to get that in before noon on Thursday. All right, Mike, down to Pod 3 we go. Wichita, Kansas. We've got two teams that are fairly close to Wichita. We've got number 6 seeded Missouri against number 11 seeded Drake. What a contrast in styles here.
My goodness, yes, absolutely. Drake, for one, they like to play slow. They
The
can win
slowest.
ugly. Yeah, and just play out a team. They've done it this year. Not a very impressive offensive team. You looked especially during Arch Madness. The highest amount of points they scored during a game in their conference championship game or in their conference championship was 70 against Southern Illinois. They won that game easily, but they only scored 68 or 63 against Bradley and still won easily in that one. Um, Much higher tempo Missouri team. They're like most SEC schools. They like to go fast. However, I think this is kind of a matchup nightmare for the Tigers, who, for one, are arguably the worst SEC team coming into the NCAA tournament. They've been pretty cold. They've been scoring in bunches, but they have not been able to win a lot of these games that they're scoring a lot in. So I'm going to take Drake in this one. I love the Bulldogs' style and being able to slow down Missouri. Going to be a great matchup to see whose tempo is going to win this game. But I like Drake to win in an ugly game.
Yeah, sorry. Missouri has this profile, Mike, of teams that you just don't like to pick in March. 6th in
Yeah.
offense and 73rd in defense. That reminds me a whole lot of what Kentucky was last year, and honestly this year too. But it's we're gonna. I think we're gonna be able to tell very early on who's gonna win this game, and it could be
Yeah.
either team. I'm gonna lean Missouri. I think their guards, Caleb Grill, Tamar Bates, I think they're just like actually going to be able to score enough in the half court. But Drake, they shoot the three exceptionally well. But yeah, they have a bunch of D2 transfers. Ben McCollum's won whatever conference he's been in for the 15th straight year. They were easily the best team in the Missouri Valley. It's unfortunate for the Drake program because he's probably played himself into another job, and that's another
Yeah.
video that we'll get to later. But
West Virginia, maybe.
I could see either team winning, and I think whoever does win this 6-11 game, Mike, will actually have a decent chance of getting to the Sweet 16. Because the other matchup in this pot is Texas Tech against UNC Wilmington. Now, the Red Raiders extremely banged up in that Big 12 tournament. I think they were down a couple of players. JT Toppin did play, but Williams was out, and one other one, and they are apparently available for Grant McCaslin in the tournament. But you could say they're available, and they might try and practice, and they just can't play, or they set out the conference tournament as a precaution. But I think Texas Tech will get past UNC Wilmington. But Mike, if they're not on their game and they're a couple players down, they could be on upset alert in the round of 32.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they had some concerning tendencies in the Big 12 tournament. They had their entire roster against Baylor, actually, in the quarterfinal game. It's a game that they dominated from tip all the way till the end, but they almost gave it up in the end. Baylor had a game-winning shot, and really it came down to Texas Tech's inability to close out the game. I think Texas Tech only had 4 points in the last, like, 5.5, 6 minutes of this game, which was very concerning for the Red Raiders to see how they could not close out a game. They lost again to Arizona. With that being said, I still really like the Red Raiders. I think they're going to be my Elite Eight pick because I think they're going to have people healthy. And JT Toppin is a hell of a basketball player. I think he's going to be at least a second team All American, and he deserves it. So I'm going to go with the Red Raiders to get past Drake in the round of 32.
And Chance McMillan and Darion Williams did miss that Arizona game. I think they were still able to compete in that.
Yeah.
But just the question mark for me, I think, is leaving them open to potentially getting picked off here. If they're at their best, they're probably the second best team in this region. But they are probably the 3 seed that I'm most nervous about, even in the first round. I think UNC Wilmington can shoot the 3 very well, but Texas Tech's also good enough to get to the Final Four. So wide range of outcomes for the Red Raiders. All right, Mike, this is the last pod of our 4th video, and perhaps the best pod in the entire bracket. We've got 3 national championship winning coaches. We've got Bill Self in Kansas going up against John Calipari in Arkansas in the 7-10, and then St. John's in Omaha going at it in the 2-15. This one is in Providence, Rhode Island. Providence definitely got the best pod, this one, and then in another region. But, Mike, what a great matchup here in the 7-10. Bill Self, John Calipari. Which side are you leaning towards?
Yeah, I mean, first off, Sean, you've got 3 of maybe the top 8 college basketball coaches of all time in this region. And I think you've got 3 really good opportunities. You got 3 teams that have a good chance to get into the Sweet 16 in St. John's, Kansas, and Arkansas. I'm going to go with Arkansas right now, and I think this is a little bit of a surprise. I didn't expect to pick them, but it's a toss-up. And the reason I pick with Arkansas is they've just been playing. They had to play their way into the tournament. This team was not getting into March Madness as of a month and a half ago, and they were able to roll up their sleeves, get some big road wins in the SEC, which has been really tough this year, and they got the job done. Look, they're also going to be coming in well-rested. They had that loss to Ole Miss that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because they were probably going to get blown out in the following game against Tennessee. So, look, I think Kansas has gotten a lot better as we've progressed through the last couple of weeks. They were able to beat Arizona. They played tight against Tech and Houston, losing both of those games. But I do like the Razorbacks to get the job done.
This one is tough for me. Arkansas, they are going to get Boogie Fland back, and he hasn't played since December. He was expected to be out for the year, but he is like practicing, and he is going to be available. It does not look like they're going to get Adu Thiero back. That's big for the Razorbacks for me, especially because of sort of the three post machines that Kansas has in Adams, Badunga, and Dickinson. I'm not sure Ivisic and Adu are going to be able to handle them enough. I'm leaning Kansas here, Mike, and I think it is going to set up a little bit of a revenge game in the round of 32 because Zuby Ejiofor for St. John started his career at Kansas, and Rick Pitino's kind of let everybody know that he was kind of, a role player at best there. These are sorts of the revenge games that actually I think matter. If you play well at one program and transfer up, you're not really looking for revenge on your old program. I think this Ejiofor situation is a great example of a revenge spot, and if it happens, you don't have it happening, so it very well might not. But Arkansas, with how little depth they have, I don't think they'll be able to win 2 games. And then Kansas, I don't think is good enough offensively to potentially knock off St. John. So I've got the Red Storm going to the Sweet 16 relatively comfortably and probably even a little further.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because we haven't seen Pitino coach a team through a deep run in the NCAA tournament in a long time. But I think he's got a great opportunity to do this. It's exciting to see New York's college basketball team going deep into the tournament. I'm really excited about it. I do think they're going to get a chance to take on Texas Tech in the Sweet 16. They're going to roll past either Arkansas or Kansas after they beat Omaha. So I think it's going to be really exciting. But look, the Johnnies, they're hot. I think they've learned how to close out basketball games, and they can score the ball in bunches, and they can play good defense. So I really like the Johnnies to get the job done and get to the Sweet 16.
I've got them going to at least the Elite Eight. They are the number 1 defense in KenPom now. They did eclipse Houston during the conference tournaments. But there's a reason why Rick Pitino keeps talking about their offense. I think they've got to make some shots. I think in an arena like the Amica Mutual Pavilion, which they're playing their first 2 games, that's not something that's foreign to them with it being in the Big East. And neither will an NBA arena because obviously they play in Madison Square Garden. Now, if they do get to a football stadium, which would be the Final Four, bad teams typically shoot bad in the football stadium. So obviously that's a long way away, but I think the ceiling for St. John's is there, and the floor is pretty high too. They didn't really look bad at all in Big East play, and it just seems like their floor might be a little bit too high for me to take them out before the Elite Eight. But Florida's really good. A lot of people's picks to win it all. Probably my pick to win it all.
Yeah.
And Mike, I think if it's Florida versus the field to get to the Final Four here, I might be leaning towards the Gators.
Yeah, I'm going with the Gators as well. I think the Gators are right now the best team in college basketball. They've proved that over the last few weeks playing in the competitive SEC that it is right now. They've certainly had their share of adversity this year, especially with their head coach being under investigation for a while. But I think the Gators are going to be cutting down the nets in San Antonio. That's my prediction.
And Walter Clayton, first team All-American. Those came out earlier today. He
Yeah.
joins, all the usual suspects there, Broom Flag, and a couple of others. But, Mike, that is it for the West region. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please check out the other region videos if you haven't already. Join the ESPN Tournament Challenge group. And the next time that we'll see you is probably recapping some of these round of 64 games. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.